Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Roundup here on BloodbowlLive. We are here to do our usual end of season review. We're going to have a look at the group stages and the knockout stages and everything in between to see what a season it has been and what a great season it has been. I am joined by Mr. Luke Bagger and Mr. Tom Hovel this week to go through everything. And in true professional style, what I have done is I've started the recording, started the stream, and just now realized that I have, in fact, not done something which is quite important for the next bit. So I'm going to fill by just rambling on slightly. There are probably some things I can ramble on about. That's a good one. A few shout outs then for this end of season. A big thank you to everyone who has donated to our charity. We've raised for St Elizabeth's Hospice this season over £900. Which is a phenomenal result, and fundraising continues to go on for various causes, as you can tell by mine and Tom's facial hair. Luke's facial hair unchanged, but is still taking part. And that's me filling just enough time to then have made up for the error that I made before with seamlessly no gap. Before we dive in, then, Luke, Tom, it's been a great season. It's been so much fun. What were your thoughts going into season 9? We kind of had a slight change in the groups. The groups were a new number. We had a few new coaches, some of which we all knew from various tournaments and things. Luke, what was kind of your gut feeling going into the season?
Well, for me, finishing second the previous season, had quite high hopes for myself, which maybe I think I definitely overcomplicated things for myself, putting that pressure on me. But yeah, like with all of the new coaches, it was kind of really nice seeing everyone's kind of skills develop throughout the season. And it wasn't just they were new coaches to our league, but quite a few, say like Ash was fairly experienced, Phil also very experienced coming in, but then also seeing brand new coaches like James, Mark, and Mitch, and I forgot his name, I can remember his handle, Dupes as well. All of those players, kind of seeing their growth throughout the season has been really impressive too.
Tom, what about you? What was your kind of gut going into season 9?
Yeah, I quite like the variety of teams. So, although we did have quite a little glut of dark elves, I think 5 of them in total, there was a nice spread of both Adge, Bash, and Hybrid in there. The fact that you really only played each person once was a quite novel kind of way of doing things. So you had to always think on your feet. So you could never go, oh well, I didn't do that quite right that time. I'll get them next time. It was straight on to the next team. Equally, and we'll no doubt get into it. It was nice to see that the fact that we've got so many varieties of teams gave you a nice spread across the actual groups as well.
Yeah, there weren't many groups that had too much duplication because of the amount of dark elves we had. You were always going to get some, but it was quite a nice mix. Let's have a look at those groups then and see kind of how they came out. So obviously we did the draw, drew what the groups were going to be, which, as always, for anyone who is new to the A&DBBL, was done partially through seeding. So looking at previous leagues' performances, taking a bit of an average score, and making sure that we separated people into 4 pots and that you had an even number from each pot in each group. A system that works quite well at spreading out what is sort of how people have done previously, but obviously doesn't take into account brand new coaches and how good they are. So it still throws a little bit of chaos into the mix. First group that we had then was the Dark Side group, which was topped in the end by James Hanley and his Disco Danger Rats. Followed by Harrison with his Amazons, Elliot with his Goblins, which were chosen as a last-minute random selection, and Simon with his Dark Elves taking the 4th place in the Champions Playoff because Jack and his Norse team couldn't proceed past the group stage. Tom, any kind of big surprises that came out of this group? Any games you were particularly looking forward to here? I think I had a bit of an eye on Harrison and his Amazons because I always back Harrison going into every season, and we know how good Amazons can be.
Yeah, so again, like I say, this is a nice spread of teams that you kind of think, oh, well, they're going to be a pushover against that team. But there was clearly a lot of toing and throwing. There was a quite up to in fact, all the top six, in fact, had a nice even spread of wins. I think all of them had a minimum. Well, actually, Simon was the only one who unfortunately only got 2 wins, but everyone else got 3 in this league. And obviously the Disco Danger Rats, because Skaven, who always win 4-0 anyway, were at the top. So yeah, it was a nice group, and also a good group of different people who played constantly. Some had come and gone and come back again. Thinking of Mitch with his vampires. I think he was out last season, wasn't he? But he was in the previous season. You've got some who are constantly sticking to their guns on good old gnomes with the Sir Honkerton's Folly as well, which, to be honest, if you look at that team halfway through the season, that was looking a dangerous team. It's such a shame that they didn't get as many wins as you could think with that team.
Yeah, they do look pretty nasty. The amount of gnome linemen he's got that just have dodge on them were pretty incredible. And 2 trees, both with block, and grab, really helping him control kind of a midfield. Luke, what did you kind of think of this group then? I think my prediction for this group was James coming out of it, and he did exactly as I expected.
Yeah, I think it was. James has obviously played quite a lot with his Rats and is clearly getting very good results. 21-8 touchdowns is always just an incredible ratio to maintain throughout a group stage. And I think doing the one game per player works quite well. And I think because previous seasons we had the like duplication of games, which gave you that kind of your revenge story, or a chance to come back. But I think for in this group, I don't think there was any duplications of there's no duplications of races played, which is also really good for helping everyone in a group learn and get better, because you're playing a broad variety of players all playing a broad variety of teams. I think I was secretly hoping Carl was gonna kind of storm to the top with the ogres, which maybe was optimistic, but not playing a single reroll. But he did manage to get a draw out of it, which I'm sure, as a stunty player, that a draw is basically a win. So I think it's kind of quite nice seeing that. But yeah, it was quite a strongly weighted stunty group actually, with 3 of them. But kind of not a huge amount of casualties even with that.
No, and with lots of teams in this group with armor 8 or lower, the amount of kind of casualties traded sort of relatively. I mean, the ogres doing the most damage in this group with 21. Is very impressive. I was quite interested by Mitch's run here, because he got off to a bad start with his first few games. I think he lost 3 from 3, and then had a kind of hit a run of form too late with sort of 2 wins, a draw, and a win, and just fell short on the tiebreakers because of sort of early injuries that he took. So it was quite interesting watching his comeback and seeing whether he would pull it off. Let's look at another group then. Let's look at Longship, which I looked at Longship as one of the groups that I think felt to me like if I was in it, it would feel the most difficult, because you've got lots of coaches who have done very well at various particular points. You've got John Reeder, who is a 3-time champion. You've got Robert, who has won A&DBBL tournament before. You've got Tom, who is a former champion. You've got Ash, who is a Ipswich Blood Bowl League champion. Luke, it is a kind of group of pedigrees. Possibly, it's not a surprise who came out of this group, purely based on kind of how we know they've performed before.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is the split of the groups is probably what most people would have predicted here. I think there's quite a lot of new coaches in the lower end, or those trying new teams, and also kind of stunty shenanigans mixed in alongside it. And I think, as we talked about yesterday with the awards evening, Scott Norman being kind of an excellent help for all of these new coaches with their stunties was kind of really nice to see, and helping them in a useful way rather than here's a way you can do something weird with your team, which is always helpful. But yeah, and I think the top 4 breakdown, I think it could have been in any order, I think. But John's done fantastically well to get to the point he did with this team as well.
Tom, we should probably talk a little bit about Scott Norman's ogres, because there is always a gimmick. This gimmick was very heavy on the staff, and I have to say that I did pretty much write off this team, I think, from the beginning. I didn't think it would be up there with the stunties as it's done before. I didn't think he would be in contention with the Stunty Cup. I just felt that he'd given himself too much of a challenge. But looking at the team he's built just with random roles, and looking at the results he got, he was actually not not far off, and it came down to the last few games. He's done really well with this team.
Yeah, you said about the pedigree, and then I think I was about to say the wildest of wild cards, because Scott always comes with a new angle to really make any opponent think twice. The fact that he's got 43 fouls to 11 is insane on that level. Not to mention that he got 16 casualties against his 32, and he even caused 20 injuries against his 35. So that's not bad at all from that perspective. I really do like the fact that Scott always comes with a different agenda than just scoring touchdowns. So it's nice to see, and long may it continue. I hope it continues into the new season.
A very tough group for those who finished 5th to 8th here, because we've got some coaches who are a little bit less experienced in that bottom side, and coming up against some very, very tough opponents. You chuck in the wild card that is Scott. It's a really tough group to get out of. So I think well played to everyone. And I want to give a shout out to the Gortooth Giggling Gits, Leanne, who finished last, 7 losses from 7, but 3 touchdowns, all throw teammate touchdowns. Genuinely a really, really entertaining. I think she's really found a team that seemed to play in. They're a very complicated team, Goblins. They are quite complex. There's lots to think about, and she honed in on that throw teammate and absolutely made it work. And it was so great to watch every time she got a touchdown. So, congratulations to her for what may not look like it, but is a really, really good season and a really good progression. So, let's take a look at another group then. And Luke, we're going to come to your group, which was another one that looked pretty terrifying when the draw was being done. I was rather scared that I was going to end up in it, and then managed to dodge it just at the very end by being picked last. How did you feel when this group was drawn? Because we're looking at a lot of names in this group who either have pedigree or the expectation that they're going to be very good. So there was a lot of expectation within this group about how people would be.
Yeah, I don't think there was a single game where I was thinking this is a guaranteed win in any case. And I mean, my results clearly reflected that. And I think no one really, bar Jamie, kind of ran away with it. It kind of felt pretty neck and neck the whole way through. And, there's only a kind of win between 3rd place and 6th place, being the deciding vote between top 4 and bottom 4. And I don't think at any point I felt secure being in the top half, which is kind of really fun. And all of the games that I played in that group were really, really enjoyable. And yeah, I think it did just come down to the games on the day, and how they played out.
Tom, this was one that I wasn't envious to be in. I don't know whether you were the same, because I did think that anyone in this group, based on how we've seen them perform previously, and no matter where they finish, I feel like anyone of this group could have got out of it, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and it's the one group with the most redrafted teams. So there was 5 teams that were redrafted in this group, including yours, Luke. So I think only Dave Roos, Scott, and Mark Humphrey were the only 3. Am I missing anyone? No. Yeah,
No, it's
they're
just
the
them.
only 3 that were brand new teams to this. So yeah, you think of those 3, they were really starting from a lower level, and unfortunately, some of them had a real tough start getting off the ground on some of those. So yeah, it did look. It was even more of a group of death than the Longship in kind of more kind of terms.
I think the one thing I feel like needs recognition from this group is for a group that didn't have any stunty teams in it. It was a group that was partially dominated by, or like I felt kind of narratively, by 2 terrifying goblins. The Orphic Gladiators goblin with, I mean, look, 2 heads, extra arms, sidestep, and diving catch by the end of it is a terrifying combination. And then, of course, we had everyone's favorite goblin Moonface, who wrestle, sidestep, sneaky get, passing 5, but who cares? Out there to cause trouble. It was nice to kind of have a couple. It's nice to have a couple of characters within a group that you can kind of from the outside. Luke, I mean, you were in it, so you're kind of seeing it and playing with or against these characters. Me and Tom from the outside, kind of looking and going like, wondering what these kind of characters are going to get up to. Future star player material for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Go
on.
No, after you.
I was going to say, as my game against Simon, Moonface was immediately the main target because he was fouling every turn. Anyone on the ground was Moonface's boot. But I'm glad he lived through the whole stage and got his level of infamy he deserved.
Absolutely did.
He equaled fouling by the looks of things, 43-3 on the fouling.
Yeah.
So he equaled Scott on the fouling.
Yeah, I think the only reason Scott managed to get most dirty player was because he progressed further than Moonface in the knockouts. It was like neck and neck the whole way through. I think Moonface had the most individual fouls of the whole league.
This is something that I'm going to check. Dirty player, yes, 24 fouls. Next highest being a gnome with 18. So yeah, Moonface absolutely leading by example. Let's look at the last group then. Swamp Dome. Tom, it's our group. A group that I have to say, and I'm going to say it at this point, I am very, very proud of this group because in as far as the final positions, the further the playoffs went, more players were in playoff positions sort of as you went on from this group. When we got to the quarterfinals, which was so great to see. And I've been kind of racking my head a little bit as to why that was the case, because it wasn't. You had Andy with his Dark Elves, who maybe ran away with it a little bit. Melton Mudpackers went unbeaten. Then from 3rd down to 6th, it's 5 points. It's not huge. And we've got the Blobbies who had a terrible record in the group stage. Why do you think this group did so well further on?
Good question. I think it was the fact that it's one of those areas that, apart from Doobs, everyone's played quite a lot, a number of seasons.
It's probably a more experienced group.
Yeah, overall. Yeah. Just looking at the other groups, maybe apart from crummies. Actually, the funny thing is that there's so many good groups here. I think we were really one of the only teams that had duplicate races for a start. So we had 2 Snotling teams in ours.
Yep.
But both were completely different. Both came out with a different enthusiasm, shall we say, of being a Snotling coach. We also had Doobs, who came out of nowhere with that Corn team and was just vicious as anything. He was rolling. He'd got skulls to the skull thrown and got some good double six dice there. Equally, I think there was a kind of those highs and lows really, because let's be honest, Scott had high hopes for his Chaos Dwarfs. He loved them. He loved how they looked and how he played them, how he painted them and everything like that. But they just didn't gel for him as well. So there was quite a lot of drama in our group. And as you say, this is quite close all the way through. In fact, you could go all the way down to 7th. There's 7 points all the way to 16. That's quite tight compared to the other groups.
I think yeah, it's there's a mix of performances here, and there's coaches who we knew were great, There's coaches who we know are very good and have struggled a bit, and then there were new coaches who overperformed. We had kind of a bit of everything. Luke, kind of seeing this group from the outside, it is an interesting kind of mix of teams and mix of coaches here. Did you kind of think that the top four was maybe what you expected? What was the big surprises here for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it probably is the top four I was expecting. Maybe was expecting Justin to slip up into that top four. But I think I'm most impressed was with Dubes and his performance. I think I watched one of his games, just I happened to be in the store, and like the decisions he was making for a new player, I've seen more experienced players get caught out on, especially playing a team like Corn, where you can easily get yourself in trouble with Frenzy. And so I think he's really going to be one to watch in the next couple of leagues if he continues to play with us. And I think the biggest achievement of this group was you all having completed end zones, which I was very envious of.
We were holding up the standard. What can I say? I'm very, very proud of my Swamp Dome coaches. Well, I mean, with all four group games, group stages completed, we went to the playoffs then, and we will have a little look at the conference first. And were there any games here in the conference, Tom, that particularly stood out to you? You were here, had a good game against the Gnomes. I think there were some quite interesting matchups here and a surprising number of a couple of draws as well. Was there any that stood out?
Yeah, well, the Gnome one was a bit of a shock for me because as I said in previously, that is a very solid Gnome team, and it's one of those teams where I hadn't played a lot against that particular team in any kind of form, be it tournaments or league. So again, when you don't quite know how a team operates, that can always put you on the back foot. But there were some real intense games as well. So one that comes to mind is the Alpha Preservation Society and the Doombringers one. That was quite a head-on one. But clearly Mark was listening to his oracle Scott giving him advice on woodies and just coming out of all guns blazing on that. So those are kind of some of them. Later on, it started to really not even settle down actually, because again, it didn't seem that easy or that quick to get through. There were a few that were a bit okay, that managed to go through all right.
We'll come on to the next round in a bit. Luke, were there any last 16 games in the conference that kind of jumped out to you in this one?
I mean, watching Scott Bryan and Leanne play their game was just so entertaining. It was 5-2, but I think there was definitely some sweat forming on Scott's brow through a couple of the turns after him scoring, and Leanne immediately one turning straight afterwards, twice in a row, which was very fun to watch. I'm still incredibly amazed Phil managed to get to semi-finals without actually winning a game. by getting the bye first and then winning on a roll off before getting to his first real win of the season. But it was kind of just yeah, I don't have words for it. It was I think anyone who played the season will understand, and I'm sure he'll be putting Blobby in the chat. And maybe he's the reason he's coming back to TV.
Created the resurgence solely himself through this league. Yeah,
manifesting Blobby.
Quarterfinals were there. He is. Quarterfinals were interesting. Tom, a very close game that you had in that one that ultimately went to the roll off. Justin getting one of his first, only his second win to get him through to semi-finals, because he had a draw in the in the last 16, or a game that sort of ended in a draw, and then he proceeded. So how this was kind of where your season finished. How did you kind of feel? It's always a tough way to go out on a roll off.
Yeah, especially as it was probably some of my best rolls. He was rolling 6s and 5s and still lost it. I think the last roll was a 3 and he beat me on that. But yeah, no, it was a good game. There was a lot of backwards and forwards. It kind of taught me humility, that you just can't think, oh, I'm going to walk this, because Nuffles dice will kind of ban you for that. The other funny thing was that Justin with the 4-0 win, you're like, okay, he's got his swag back with his elves, because I've played him with his elves in previous seasons, and he's just amazing with them. He's just he knows how to play an elf team on that side on the quarterfinals. Yeah, and the other two games were quite interesting as well. I'm trying to remember, because Scott's one against Imperial Nobility, James's Imperial Nobility, kind of flew under the radar a bit, actually, this Imperial Nobility team, because I think they were quite solid, actually, to be honest.
Scott had a real tough time breaking them down, and that 1-0 was a very tight 1-0. Yeah, he said he really struggled to kind of break this team down to get that win. And it was one of the tougher games, I think he said, that he had. So, credit to James being his first season, and first season drawn in a very tough group, but getting through to those to the quarterfinals and then making it difficult as well.
Yeah.
What did we think of the final then? We had our very own Mr. Scott Bryan versus the Snotlings, the Blobby team. As we said, Blobby team getting there with only the one win under their belt, but an awful lot of swagger. And Scott, Scott had a tough time with these Dark Elves to start with. So two coaches who both struggled a bit through the group stage, but got here. Ended 2-1 after extra time. Do we feel it was the right result? Were we surprised? I think I was surprised that the Blobbies managed to take it as far as extra time, because I felt like they should have been on borrowed time, but they just kept going, and their resilience was really impressive.
Yeah, I don't know if it was whether, because I hadn't been paying too much attention to Phil's games necessarily, but was he taking stars and things before?
He was always
Yeah,
taking
but not as like a lot of giants.
He took a giant
saw
throughout
big
all of them,
giants, but
and he was always trying to bring in the riotous rookies.
yeah,
But then he was kind of mixing it up with what was left.
Yeah, I wonder if it got to a point where Phil suddenly realized that he had a chance to claim the conference and then started trying as hard as he could for this. And Phil's a decent player, even with a weird team like this. And so I think the fact Scott managed to take the win, I think, because Scott struggled quite a bit at the start with the Dark Elves. I remember his first couple of games, and they're quite an unforgiving team early on until you start building up the kind of chosen and random skills on them. But I think Scott probably went in with a stronger mindset, which might have given him the edge to this. and it was kind of tight the whole way through it. But yeah, I think it ended basically on a numbers advantage towards the end, where the
Yeah,
elves kind of just had more useful players around.
the elves started to remove quite heavily snotlings in the last in extra time. They just started
Extra
every
time,
turn they
right?
were
Yeah.
picking one or two off, along with trolls failing rushes and boneheads and there being no rerolls in play. It all kind of happened. It sort of collapsed in that way, but a very impressive performance. It's not going to be very often that we see someone perform, to be fair, so badly in the group stage and then get all the way to the final, through whatever means that happens. It's an impressive achievement. So, should be very pleased with that as far as the season goes. Um, let's look at the Champions Cup then, the battle to see who will be the season 9 champion. And there were lots of games in this last 16 that looked quite interesting, that looked like they could be tight matchups. Luke, I have to say that probably the game that caught my eye was yours versus Robert, as two very good coaches with teams that they are very good with. It was probably the game that caught my eye.
Yeah, it was so much fun to play. I think on reflection, so I'd been it was before season 3 was announced, and I was desperately hoping to try and get a skill up on my Dark Elf just because I've never got a player with enough SPP to do that. And what I should have done is taken sure hands on him to stop stroke ball against the Valkyries. Yeah, Robert had some amazing stretch plays, which just played off. But yeah, it was a terrific game, and he played really, really well and definitely deserved the win. I also was. I had my eye on your game as well, rooting for Harrison, and and then you beat him, and then I played him in a tournament the day after with lizards, and he took out all of his frustrations on my lizard team. Yeah, no, I think all of the games were so close in this upper set. There was kind of no easy wins here. Even James and Simons literally came down to the last couple of rolls on being able to kind of for James to get that final goal in extra time. So yeah, just a great, just a really good top half, I think.
Tom, were there any games that stood out for you in this last 16?
Yeah, I really like the ultimate block versus dodge of Jamie against Graham, so Dwarf versus Amazons. That just looks like a classic game where you've got just an amazing dwarf team slowly but surely depleting that Amazon team one by one. Turn 6, turn 11, turn 12, turn 15, out, and then turn 20 just for laughs into the extra time. So that did sound like it was a good game. So that was my highlight for that.
And also incredible reroll management from Jamie in that game, holding on to his rerolls, playing for that extra time to know that he can grind out against the Amazons. And it was one of the few repeat games, so they played in the group stages together as well.
Okay.
It was it was a very all of the games were very tight. That was one of many that went to extra time. We saw coaches like John, who had done very well in the group stage, go out to Scott, who himself would say that he sort of underperformed in the group stage and didn't have a very good time. Last 8 then gave us lots of very interesting matchups and gave us a couple of games going to roll-offs as well. Disco Danger Rats 2, Mountain Mudpackers 2 going to a roll-off, which the Snotlings won, and Bitey Ducks and Corn going to a roll-off, which the Claws of Corn won. So really, close games. Were there any kind of quarterfinals that that surprised either of you here in this top bracket? I think for me, I felt like I probably would have had Jamie to beat Robert otherwise, and to be fair, I would have had James to beat Andy, if I was kind of making the guesses. The other two games probably went how I thought they would.
Yeah, I think the one surprise for me, and it clearly just shows, you know, Scott's skill, is to hold Tom to just a 1-0. Because Dark Elves versus those Chaos Dwarfs, you know, Scott, as you say, kept on saying, that he just couldn't get his head round them, and it was really difficult playing them. And Tom's Dark Elves, where for the majority of it, he only had 4 that he was constantly, you know, SPPing up and having a load of journeymen, really. In fact, he had 2 in this one. And a mascot. So it looks on paper a really boring game, because there was 1 casualty in turn 6 and then a touchdown in turn 14, and that was it. But it just shows probably the level of thinking that was probably going on in this actual kind of game. It went on for 2 hours and 20 minutes. So knowing these two, they would have been thinking 3 steps ahead on both sides of the table.
Yeah, I think for Tom, 49 minutes worth of play for Tom is probably on the long side. So I'm assuming they gave each other a little bit to think about. Luke, any standouts for you in these quarterfinals?
Well, after being knocked out, I hate to admit it, but I was rooting for the Ducks to make their way to the top.
So was I.
So I was gutted that I failed on the road roll off, which we needed to come up with a fun way to do. GW needs a better way to do roll offs to decide these. I think it always has a slight hint of unsatisfaction. But I don't know. I've not actually had to do a roll off myself yet. But I mean, how did that feel, Chris? Was it?
Honestly,
could you have done more, or is it?
I think, and I think Andy thought I could have done more, but I honestly felt that particularly from about turn 12 onwards, there was Andy taking the lead. There was I could have taken the lead to win the game. Andy then did take the lead. I then one turned. He then got a timeout. Like it kept jumping between who Nuffle wanted to win this game. That I kind of felt that I felt that it would almost do it justice to just leave it down to Nuffle and leave it down to the dice rolls in a head to head. And I think actually, looking at the season as a whole up to that point, Andy deserved to go through to the semi-final. So I wasn't really too upset. I didn't feel like I had lost to someone who I felt I had just overall been better than. He beat me in the group stage, comfortably, playing really well. He had a fantastic group stage. So I wasn't really too upset, because I kind of felt that I felt that whatever the result of the roll-off would have probably been fair for the game. And if I lost it, I lost to someone who had a better season. So, I quite pragmatic, I think.
Very diplomatic. Would you have rather do Blood Brawl to
decide? Not now. I've played a number of games of Blood Brawl and I've lost most of them. Although the ones I've won have been with skinks, so maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it. Well, we had our quarterfinalists. Melton Mudpackers then moved past Claws of Corn very easily. And the Dark Elves of the 5 Rules of Dodge got past the Tipsy Tankards as well with not too much issue, leaving us with another Snotlings versus Dark Elves and the first ever A&DBBL final to go to a roll-off. It was incredibly close. It was very, very tense the last few turns. It only went... it tells you the kind of game this was, Tom, where the fact that the only reason it went to a roll-off was because Morg happened to catch the ball and then went in to get the touchdown. That kind of tells you what you need to about the Snotling season and this final, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Andy's played this Snotling team very well. You can talk about gaming the system and umpire and all that kind of palaver, but at the end of the day, you've still got to play the game. You can't just put the pieces on the pitch and go, yeah, I've won. There's chance. There's a lot of chance around dice. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. I've seen it where Morgan's gone to dodge out and killed himself in tournaments. Those kind of things. It started off pretty well. With casualties on numerous sides, and then by the looks of things in the second half, things start to go wrong with a lot of injuries going towards the Snotlings. But as you say, it brought it back with Morg scoring that touchdown to bring it into end of the match in the final turn. I don't know. I'm a bit like yourselves. It's like what is the better alternative to a roll off? Is it just more extra time or sudden death or something like that? But unfortunately, with this kind with Blood Bowl, you could be there for days, especially with these two coaches.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I think sudden death favors the team that receives, and quicker teams who can score quicker immediately. I actually think that while it kind of hurts to go out on to lose on roll offs and go out on roll offs. I mean, Tom, you went out on a roll off this season. I went out on a roll off this season. If a game has got to a point where nothing will separate it over what can be 24 turns, 24 turns can be. This was 3 hours, could be 4, could be longer. There is a little part of me that wonders whether there is any other way. Just a little bit part of me that hates it, but wonders whether in a game that we, pray to Nuffle as much as we do, sometimes do you just have to let him decide, and it sucks.
And it's also like, if it's got to that point, it's because both coaches have played so well attacking and defending in equal measures that it kind of does feel like it just becomes a game of chance at the end, where
Yeah.
because you're basically hoping for them to snake. That's the equivalent of what could give you the edge to get the victory. And so rolling off, it probably does feel fair.
So a word on our Stunty Cup champion then. Andy did take home the Stunty Cup with by finishing the highest of all of the Stunty teams. I think anyone who has played against a Morg Hackflem Snotling build knows how powerful it is. But I don't think I really don't want to understate the fact that you can take Morgan Hackflem with Snotlings, as you could in season 2. You can take that build, but if you don't know what you're doing, you will still lose. And I think this is a key thing, is that whether you like that build or not, whether you think it's broken or not, it doesn't matter. Put a broken build in the hands of someone that they don't know what they're doing, and they will fail. Andy looked up how this build works. He made sure he knew what he was doing. He made sure he had a game plan. He made sure he managed his team value to ensure he could do it. There's a lot of work that Andy had to do and a lot of effort Andy had to put in. And we've seen teams in the league before who have done similar things and not made it this far. So it is an incredible achievement by Andy to have done how he has done, to get where he's got to, and to get there with the level of kind of enthusiasm and joy. Anyone who's played Andy will know he's an absolute joy to play with. It's so much fun. He brings so much enthusiasm. And he should leave this season feeling incredibly proud of how he's done.
Absolutely, and just a sneaky, cheeky little thing. I'm my little claim to fame is I'm the only one who held him not to score a touchdown against me. I'm the only person in the entire season he didn't score a touchdown against.
That's the trick. Just take orcs against him. You can't deal with them.
That's it.
Yeah.
Luke, a word on our Stunty champion.
Yeah, I think I said it quite early on, where I think I heard him apologizing to someone for the build he was taking, and I basically encouraged him to fully embrace the heel turn, and as you've said, it's not something anyone can do and do as well as he's done. So it is a huge achievement to get this far with this build, and we might see some more people try this kind of thing, and without a lot of preparation or practice, and the way he was protecting Morgan Hackflem with his Snotlings and screaming, and setting up the cages to protect his star players. Not everyone can think that far ahead or would do that without the practice. So, yeah, I think he absolutely deserved where he got to.
So finally, then, a word on our champion. Tom, it's his second A&DBBL title. He has come to the point where he has fully embraced the fact that Edge is the way that he knows and likes and is good at playing. His second title in 3 seasons. He won season 7 with Amazons. And the key takeaway I think we have said it quite a lot is that Tom spent large chunks of this season with having lots of players not survive very long at all. He managed to keep a hold largely of positionals, but he lost a lot of players at several points and spent a lot of the season only with a few key positionals and the one lineman who was getting lots of SPP in his roster. And he managed to make it through all the way that he did, getting the results that he did, playing very, very well, playing the way he knows how to play, and at the end of the day has got to the point where he's got into a game against the only other unbeaten coach or the only unbeaten coach in the league, and taking him all the way to 24 turns, not been distracted, not been sidetracked by the stars and everything like that. A deserved champion that we've got this season, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you've said it all really. He knows how to play Edge teams. He also knows the basics of Blood Bowl. He's very, very good at positioning players. Really looking 2 steps ahead. He. It's funny because we were at the Suffolk Subterranean, literally the day before the final, and I met him outside when the doors had just opened. And he'd already said, "Yeah, I've come to win here, and I've come to win tomorrow."
Yeah,
So
he was very
mindset,
confident, wasn't he? I'm doing the double this
He's
weekend.
doing the double, and he did it. He literally went and did it. So yeah, amazing. Yeah, he, as I say, there's lots of dice rolling and stuff, but there is definitely some tactics involved in playing Blood Bowl, and he knows them.
Luke, a word on our champion.
Yeah, I've consistently been impressed with his I guess ability to continue to get results even with over half of his team missing a majority of the time, which is having all of the journeymen with loner and no skills. It is testament to his ability to play. I'm still gutted I haven't really got to play him in a league, so I'm looking forward to that at some point. But I think there's not much more to add. He has just been consistently an excellent player, and we need to keep an eye on him for the next league.
Find a way to shut him down. No, Tom, all the best. So many congratulations. Well done. A very deserved multiple champion, joining the ranks of Rich and John as multiple A&DBBL champions, and very well deserved indeed. That's the end of our season then. That's everything. That is all the games, that's all the roundups, that's us done. We will be back, of course, for season 10 at some point in the new year. We'll keep you updated on that. But the only other thing I can say is, firstly, a huge thank you to all of our coaches, everyone who was happy to be streamed this season. Do appreciate that it's some level of invasion of your privacy to have everything you say broadcasts on our little BloodbowlLive channel. So I do appreciate anyone who has been willing to be streamed, anyone who's contributed in any way to all of that. A huge thank you from me. A big thank you to Mr. Tom Hovell, Mr. Scott Bryan, Mr. Luke Baggett. If I've missed someone who has filled in on a roundup, I don't think I have, but if I have, thank you to you as well for keeping the roundup going. We're so pleased that people enjoy this silly match of the day that we do once a week during the season, and long may it continue. So thank you, everyone. Have a very, very Merry Christmas, very good New Year, and we will see you in 2026 for season 10.